border bill they're voting on today, more than likely. Have y'all read it? Are y'all supportive of it?
So I've looked over the proposals, their package. Obviously, they've got to finish up, see if they have other amendments and things on it, but the House is acting on this, as they have on energy policy and permitting, as they have on the debt ceiling. The Senate so far has not taken up any of those. Senator Schumer has been unwilling to be able to take up, even to debate those. It is our hope and our prayer and our intention to be able to force the issue on this. We all see the problem at the border. We've got to be able to have a solution. Now, the Senate and the House don't always agree on everything. I don't know if you've noticed. We do have disagreements at times. But we've got to be able to get together to be able to resolve this. Some of the basic parameters of their bill dealing with how to be able to deal with the asylum loopholes that are there, finish building the border fencing. Some of those are pretty basic things that are just not controversial. Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, immigration legislation has been a tough sell here in Congress for the past years. But with Title 42 ending, is there like a narrow piece of legislation that you think senators could come around relatively soon to address the influx that's going to be coming in with that?
Our hope is to try to move on something as quickly as we possibly can to be able to get something resolved. Anyone who has eyes can see the problem now on the border. And there are lots of issues on immigration. And every time we talk about immigration, everybody wants to pile on one more issue, one more thing. But we do need to deal with securing the border. Well, I would say I always support my own bills, so those are the best. Those are 100% accurate every time on my own. But what we're seeing now is working through committees, multiple members that have been here today are bringing up different ideas. I think the Senate will pull together multiple good ideas from different bills and to be able to combine a bill. It can't be so big that it doesn't get done because it's obvious this is a major problem. The administration, by the way, does have the tools to enforce the asylum policies. They have those tools right now. They've always had those tools. They've just chosen not to be able to use them. So, yes, ma'am.
Can you just address the broader issue, though? Is there any momentum at all for comprehensive immigration reform? Can you poll the Democrats who are concerned about the border, and a number have been vocally concerned about Title 42 ending? And then I just have a separate question about the debt ceiling.
So I would say I hope that we can get an immigration bill. If you start talking about comprehensive, that ends up being a 3,000-page bill with lots of issues that gets weighted down in committees as we're going through the minutia of it. Securing the border has not been a controversial issue in the past. It's clearly a problem that everybody can see. If you go back in the past, we were voting in a bipartisan manner in the Senate and in the House to be able to add border fencing. Now suddenly border fencing is controversial. Again, some of these issues are just not controversial to be able to resolve. The asylum issue is the big loophole that does have to be closed, and we've got to be able to resolve that issue. So whether we can do a comprehensive bill that weighs down and then falls on its own weight, I doubt it. But whether we can deal with a smaller, more tailored bill that may have multiple topics but deal with the key issues there, I think it's possible. And I'm going to keep working as if it is. What would you follow up on that?
And on the debt ceiling, just ask you, President Trump last night is urging Republicans to, quote, do a default if you don't get the massive cuts that you want, saying you might as well do it now, you're going to have to do it later. Just wonder if you agree with those things.
So I think we do need to be responsible to the way we handle the debt. We've had a debt limit vote that's happened decade after decade. Both parties have come to the table to be able to negotiate this. Both parties have actually approached it, but we do need to have negotiation. Speaker Pelosi held up the House and said she would not approve a debt limit until President Trump had increased spending. And I think President Trump is saying it's now the Republicans' turn to be able to say we're going to decrease spending on this. President Biden has tried to increase spending $2 trillion. $2 trillion. And it's not unreasonable to be able to say, let's slow down the rate of spending. And so I'm going to let Speaker McCarthy actually be the lead negotiator on this. But we need to be able to do the right thing, keep a stable market, and continue to show that the Americans are the adults in the world stage. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You touched on the asylum issue. How should security be balanced with the humanitarian and asylum issue here, especially when you have potential legitimate asylum claims coming to the border? And then you have countries like Venezuela saying, we're not going to accept deportation flights.
So when you deal with a Venezuelan that's coming through, they've already come through about 7 countries before they ever got here. The rule in most countries in Europe, certainly the law that's in Canada, if you arrive in Canada and you're from Venezuela, the first question that they're going to ask you is, did you request asylum in the countries you traveled through? If they say no, they're going to turn them right back around. That's in most countries in Europe, the same thing. The typical thing on asylum worldwide has been you go plead asylum in a country that's nearby. Well, last time I was in Yuma, Arizona was in January. When I was in Yuma, I looked on the board on how many countries were coming through that month, and I was fascinated to be able to see there are more people from Uzbekistan than there was from El Salvador that particular month I was in Yuma, Arizona. Those are folks that have traveled through multiple countries and continents to be able to then pay the cartel to be able to cross the border. That's not an asylum request. That's economic opportunity. So we're open for asylum seekers. We do have a humanitarian nature, and our country has always had a humanitarian nature. But if these are individuals traveling through multiple countries that have not requested asylum anywhere else because they say, well, I've got a cousin that lives here in America and I want to be able to join them, well, great, there's a legal way to be able to do that, but it's not asylum. That's ignoring the basic premise of asylum. So the thing that needs to be done with asylum is have a higher screening standard so that you're not released into the country and awaiting a 10-year process to be able to request asylum. That ignores the legitimate asylum seekers. They don't get their day in court because so many people that are avoiding the process are skipping through the process. But it also puts out a global message that says, hey, if you want to seek asylum, we have great compassion. Go to a nearby country and do that just like we do in the rest of the world. So let me take one more from somebody who hasn't asked a question. Anyone else? Okay, you get a last question then.
Thank you, Senator. Republicans claim the Biden family has no business venture to justify the millions sent from foreign sources. What is your reaction? And then going off women's question about the town hall, what was your reaction to the entire Trump town hall?
So second one I can't answer because I actually met with a whole bunch of constituents last night and didn't see all of it. On the previous one, I'm going to let the House be able to drive that messaging as well. They're the ones doing the investigation, be able to walk through all the data and the information. So y'all, thanks for coming out. Thanks for being a part of the dialogue today. Let's get the message out.